Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Mona, Cloud Architect. This is our fifth week in a series of 4 weeks this month of March. We extended this to April 2nd, so hope you don't mind and that's okay. Today, just as a reminder, we are going to be covering not this whole broad agenda, but we over the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, we've covered the Compliance Center, Compliance Manager, some capabilities around the new compliance score. That wonderfulness. We covered permissions and retention, query-based holds, custodian-based holds for litigation or matters management. We covered our compliance boundaries search, content search for those administrative cases, and for, again, e-discovery or public records. We covered advanced e-discovery with true review capabilities, review sets, redaction, a number of other features for tagging and annotating documents and helping you prepare to win cases out there. And today we're going, and all of these things, I think, really contribute. If we're compliant and we know that we're compliant, and we passed audits, that reduces risks. If we have a litigation and we're able to produce evidence, that reduces risk. If we're able to hold content and prove that we held this content, that reduced risk, that there was no evidence of spoliation. All of these things reduce risk, but I wanted to today go into some new capabilities for the government community cloud around data protection, labeling of content, and this is not a retention label, this is a sensitivity label. So how to protect content and make sure that sensitive information isn't being shared inside or outside the organization, that you can protect that. And then we're going to look at communication compliance to make sure that nobody is threatening their coworkers or people outside, constituents or coworkers or people outside the organization who are vendors, etc., that there isn't any swear words, profanity. All of that is done through communication compliance. And then we'll look at insider risk, the risk that happens from people who are leaving the organization or about to leave the organization, etc. Again, these two slides, I've got all of this in greater detail. So the records management, customer keys, and managing keys, we'll talk about that today in our data protection, privileged access management, compliance center in general, data loss prevention, data leak prevention, which we'll cover in a couple of seconds here. All of these nice, neat features. And then what I did in this document, instead of linking to what is data loss prevention, what is advanced message encryption, these actually take you to how do I protect the information in my environment. So here, in fact, is the information protection life cycle. You will notice first and foremost today, we're primarily focusing on RMS and rights management services that exist in Office 365 content. And this is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, all of those files that you would use and the applications that you would use to access those files that are stored, saved, housed, sent, received, or shared with others from Office 365. And these are called sensitivity labels. And sensitivity labels and DLP policies apply to content within Office 365. If we move beyond Office 365, now we've got file servers on premises that we have not yet moved to OneDrive. Get going. OneDrive, takes your backups off network, protects those from viruses, allows you to restore quickly and easily if somebody does have a mishap or accidentally deletes a file that they shouldn't have deleted. There are a lot of benefits to moving to OneDrive, but if you still have file shares, we can protect that data with an Azure Information Protection label, and I'll cover that in just a bit. If we're using any of these 23,000 other SaaS applications out there, we've got Microsoft Cloud App Security Broker, which can protect your data, integrates in with rights management and Azure Information Protection to protect files if somebody decides to move that file out to a third-party sync and share solution. And then finally, we're adding into the government community cloud. It's already in our commercial cloud, but these connectors to connect to provide governance and e-discovery and protection to files, whether they're anywhere. SMS text messages in a SQL database, in a Zoom meeting, in Slack. So we can extend the reach beyond our premises and our cloud and 23 other CAS apps with these connectors out to information wherever it exists. Now, this is important to point out that, we had these capabilities of Office 365 rights management services. These actually shipped in the old days with Business Productivity Online Suite. So these are about 14 years old now. So rights management moved from Active Directory rights management servers that we had running on premises to protect content that your end users, you put the burden on the end user to right click and say, protect this file, or in Word, apply a label to the file, encryption to the content. Today in Office 365, those are handled through sensitivity labels, and we can say, oh, we've got the sensitivity label, let's apply a DLP policy to block this content or protect this content from being shared or going somewhere else in the organization. Now, what that looks like is that when we use these policies out there, and you can see that even in Microsoft Teams, I've got lots and lots of customers. Don't know why I had that highlighted. Well, the good thing is that, if somebody does send you a message in Japanese, you're Chinese, you can translate this content. So translation services are there. Super beautiful thing. But here, me acting as this user in this tenant, I'm going to send a request that we need to order some E905.3. Now, if you're in the healthcare world and you have memorized all the ICD-9 and ICD-10 codes, you might recognize this E905.3, which in this case somebody believes is a part number, but you in a healthcare world might recognize that as an ICD-10 or an ICD-9 code. And ICD-10 or ICD-9 codes in this tenant were deemed not to be shareable as protected information. So when I clicked the send here, that you will see in 5, 4, 3, 2, here we go, 1 second, I get a toast that pops up and says, hey, your message was blocked. And I get a reminder here in the message. Other people won't see this message because it contained healthcare information. Now, maybe this isn't healthcare information. Maybe this is a part number. What the heck can I do? Well, the first thing you can do is click the what the heck can I do button. So this tells me, hey, your message was blocked because of a HIPAA policy. Yeah, I can say, hey, I'm going to override this and report it to my admin, or I can override this and report. In this case, this was a false positive. I used to carry around a hydraulic hose for a snowplow because that hydraulic hose had a 4-4-4-4 part number to it. Well, everywhere in the world that showed up as a Visa or a MasterCard, I don't remember which, but a credit card number. So in that case, they could say, hey, this isn't healthcare information. It's a part number. And if you get enough of these, you might want to say, hey, in our policy, whenever you see a E905 or E904 or whatever, that's not an ICD-10 code, it's a part number. So you could do something like say, if the words part number precede, or if the word order precedes E905.3, then ignore it from the HIPAA policy. And you'll see once I can confirm this, that the message is unblocked and then sent through. Now, that's an important part, that with any of these DLP policies, difficult for me to say late on a Friday, you can say, I'm going to block this. No exceptions. I'm going to allow an end user to comment on it or to report it as a false positive and unblock it. So they can report it without unblocking, and then you can unblock it later, or they can report it and unblock it. So block it completely, block it but report it, unblock it and report it. Those are your options. You have those options to do this. And these do work across email as well. So if I'm composing a new message here and I'm sending this message to tmon2000 at hotmail.com, I can send this email to timon2000@hotmail.com. I can send this to Alex Wilbur. I do believe I am in the, no, I'm going to go to a different, yet another tenant here. You get to see all of my tenants today, which is just a thrilling, exciting thing in and of itself, because this is just a wonderful, glorious world. I was just showing this in a different demo with some constituent information. Heck, we'll use the same. I was wondering why my Hotmail wasn't pulling up there. But now I've got Alex in my nickname cache. And this, I only show that my email is timon2000@hotmail. So you know I'm not #1 Bieber fan. Here is the file at hotmail.com. So I'm going to attach a file now. And of course, we've got this beautiful new thing called Cloud Attachments. And this does work with Cloud Attachments as well. It will block that and give me a, hey, this message wasn't sent. So do know that that is a possibility. The beautiful thing last week in Advanced eDiscovery, I shared with you that we can gather up these cloud attachments. So what this does, instead of me sending an Excel spreadsheet out to 5 people, they each modify it and then send it back. And then I have to aggregate, modify, codify that Excel spreadsheet. Huge bunch of work. So with cloud attachments, I'm actually sending a link to this file in my OneDrive, and then everybody is modifying that one file. So that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But here I'm going to grab this Project Falcon constituent data. If we had time and I opened this file, you would see indeed that there is credit card information in a hidden column. Now that's an accidental. This isn't nefarious. I didn't mean to grab these credit cards and send them out to a Hotmail address and somebody that I work with. That was an accident. The column was hidden. I didn't notice that there was credit card information. And that's about 97% of these incidents in the world aren't nefarious. They're accidental. Again, if these were hydraulic hoses and part numbers for snow plows, I could report this as such. And then if there's enough cases of that, you could, again, modify your policy. It's also important here that DLP and rights management with our sensitivity labels kick in here. So I removed the external recipient, which would, before, if I just went ahead and clicked send there, I would have gotten a non-deliverable email issue error. So it would not have been delivered. It would have been blocked. Alex Wilbur is in our accounts receivable, accounts payable, maybe works in Department of Revenue, and can receive credit card information. But now when I click send, this file is going to be rights protected. It will have, Alex can't download this. Alex can't print it. Alex can't forward this to somebody else. Alex can only read it when he's connected via VPN, and Alex can only read it for 5 days. So that's how we're protecting this. Don't allow sensitive information outside the organization unless it's approved or there's an exception. B, if it can be sent, received by somebody, then let's protect it with rights information. Once protected with rights information protection, or Azure Information Protection, I can take this file, I can put it on USB sticks, I can drop it from helicopters. Nobody will access that data unless they have rights to that data. It's military AES 256-bit encryption. It's super capable of protecting your data and keeping your data safe and sound. Now, back here in this slide. So we had these great sensitivity labels that protected email and Teams meeting and Skype messages and all this other great stuff, and kept content through with DLP policies from leaking outside our organization. So that content would not egress from our organization, or it would be blocked from being sent, as I just showed you. With Azure Information Protections, we introduced these things in P1, Plan 1 of Azure Information Protection, a scanner to say, hey, I've got this file share out here with these tons and tons of files on it. I'm going to label this content. And this was actually created for a customer who was moving their file shares to Office 365. They wanted to categorize, classify, and protect content before it made that move. And this was really pretty cool because they took Azure Information Rights Services, they scanned all those files with different nodes on those file servers, and this could be any server. We add a node to it. They got reports back. They analyzed these, something like 13 million documents, if my memory serves me. They had Azure Information Protection labels, and then they moved them. So they were ACLed. They were protected on premises with Azure keys. The sad thing about this is that these labels protected Azure information and these labels protected Office 365 information, and neither of the two shall meet. There was this hard shaft of this umbrella in the way here. Let's say I created the world's best policy at Office 365, but then I wanted it to run on a node on premises, I had to recreate that policy over here. No more. Since last summer, we removed that nasty shaft of the umbrella here. We've renamed this Microsoft Information Protection Labels. And if I create a label in Office 365, it can be used in Azure, or if I create a label in Azure, it can be used in Office 365. We called this unified labels right here in the big yellow letters, unified labels. So I create a label once, I use it in both places. So that gets me to a world where I can now say I'm going to protect my content in Office 365 and extend this out to on-prem. So I can extend this from the cloud to premises by using, what was that called? Oh yes, unified labels. And let me show you how difficult it is to implement and use unified labels. So I'm going to keep those chicken scratch there for us, so you'll all have it as a follow-up. In my tenant here, I bounce into Azure, and inside of Azure, I have a little locked item here that looks like a lock, and it says Azure Information. I click Azure Information Policies. I've already got hundreds of policies in Office 365. I might have a couple of policies over here. I click on Unified Labeling, and then I click Activate. The most complex task on Windows environments, the single click. You are going to use a single click. I'm going to publish my labels from Azure to Office 365. I'm going to copy my labels from Office 365 to Azure. So you've got two more clicks. Exhausting. You might have to have a snack or a break in between those, but 3 clicks, activate, publish my AIP to Office, take my Office labels and copy them over to Azure. And then once you see them, you will see the labels here. Now, there was some significant differences if I created a label. These were 2 different groups at Microsoft, and you would have seen that Tom's an idiot and he's in the wrong tenant again, first and foremost. Yeah, I apologize. I'm glad that you don't have lots of different templates with lots of different demos to do. That's a beautiful thing and great for you. Not so good for me. But here in my multiple tenants, I would see a number of different labels, some from Office 365, one that was just created moments ago, so it did synchronize. So that's an important distinction that I want to make. I don't know why we named this publish and copy. These are synchronized. So if I create a new AIP label, it synchronizes to Office 365. I create a new Office 365 RMS sensitivity label, it will be synchronized to Azure. So I apologize for the nomenclature there, taxonomy. I don't know why that was that way. You will see one of the benefits that Azure Information Protection labels had over Office 365. You could color your label. You could give it a color. Woo, stop the world. I want to get off. This is a beautiful thing if it makes, in the HIPAA world. So I used a guest HIPAA policy. I was thinking of Blue Cross Blue Shield, the blues, and I labeled it blue in color. Office 365 sensitivity labels, if I'm creating that in the old Security and Compliance Center and I create a sensitivity label, there is nowhere to designate a color of the label. So those labels come across as black. But the same processes of naming this, setting the scope, where it's going to apply, who it's going to apply to, and then we can extend this out to Azure Purview. This is in preview right now, but we can extend these Office 365 labels, even without unified labels, even without Azure Information Protection. I can extend these rights management services labels out to Azure virtual machines, SQL databases, content out there. So that is a good new thing that we have there. From in my Azure labels, I would next say, hey, am I going to protect files? Or I can remove protection. So let's say we've got a bunch of, I was working in with HIPAA, and due to this darn COVID crisis that we're all under, a lot of Department of Health organizations are working with healthcare institutions. I've got all these files, but they're encrypted, they're protected. But now I've got to get them outside to somebody outside of my Department of Health and into a healthcare clinic or hospital. I can remove protection. So I can say, hey, as this file egresses and is sent to these individual people, because I can select people here, and I can say, as these files are sent to Timon@Microsoft.com or Timon@prem2cloud.com, I am going to remove that protection because I know that these two people, it's just one and same, it's just me. I just have multiple email accounts, but I can say, hey, we are going to protect this individual and or unprotect this file because we know this is a good person and they can see this type of content. Or similarly, we could lock it down and say, hey, I need to protect this information when it goes outside the organization, except for if it goes to these different people. We can mark that up with a header, a footer, or a watermark. We can designate what that watermark is. We can designate a sign and whether that goes straight across the page or diagonal across the page, what color it is, and again, if it's horizontal. We can also do some matching here, whether it's a keyword or a dictionary, or some of these are built into the system that you'll see there are a bunch of these, and you can say the information type is one of these templates that's already here, or you can custom create a template and look at, you know, a exact phrase or exact data matching, or have a regular expression, or in Office 365, upload a dictionary. So if you had the ICD-9 codes in a Word document or PDF, you could upload those and bring those in. And you can look at the different financial, medical, or privacy policies that are here, and then again, or build a custom policy. So that too is a very cool thing. And then you can look at the maximum or minimum number of occurrences in that file before you know, the alarm bells sound and you encrypt the content. The other thing that's nice here, within Azure Information Protection, that you can determine if you do want to have offline usage of this file, or require that people are actually VPN'd in and connected to open those files. So that is yet another part of the protection here, is that I can say, hey, I'm going to expire this content, and I can do it by a number of days, or maybe I expire this content on 4/8/2021, or this content never expires. Or again, I can just say, hey, I'm going to expire this content in 5 days. So 5 days after it's sent and this label is applied, it's going to expire and nobody will access this again. Another great way to protect your content. You could have something simple as a policy and procedure manual, and it's not encrypted at all, but it is protected and it does expire. Like maybe we want to say our policy and procedure manual runs from January 1 to December 31. So somebody double clicks on that file on January 5th of the next year, it would say, you know, this file's no longer available, get the new one here. So you can do all of those things. The offline access, again, I can say, you know, I always allow offline access. So somebody can access this if they do copy the file to a USB stick, they go to their kid's computer or grandma's computer on vacation, they move it off the USB stick, they double click it, they can open it. Or you could say never allow that, you know, do not allow that. It's got to be on a managed device. I have to use a credentials from Active Directory. Maybe I want to go one step further and say, hey, if you're accessing this SharePoint site or these SharePoint files from a non-managed device, I'm going to have you use multi-factor authentication. Again, eliminating risk of this data traveling out there. Or I could say, hey, the day that this file is sent, let them access it one day offline, but after that, we're going to make them, log in. So again, that's Azure information protection and the way that we can protect content using these nodes and clusters. I can deploy these nodes and go out and scan my files or do I didn't say Siri, scan in preview. I can create network scan jobs to scan files outside of Office 365 and again within my environment. Now the next thing here, I've got this little MCAS circle, and with MCAS, we do have an ability to do some additional capabilities here, and I can never remember the darn URL. Go to protection, if I spelled protection properly, protection.office.com. And within protection.office.com, we have alerts, and those alerts can be extended out to our advanced alerts in our Cloud App Security Broker. I am clicking there. I thought that this darn thing just opened up automatically. I thought I had this saved in my settings. I apologize for that. Now, what's cool about MCAS is there are about, I don't know, a lot of these cloud applications, they're called SaaS, software as a service, cloud applications out there. We can connect cloud app security to services like Office 365 and Azure. And then we can say, hey, I don't know, like one organization, it's kind of funny. I said, are your users using SaaS applications? Are they using Shadow IT? And they were like, oh no, we're locked down tight as a drum. And I'm like, nobody's using like Box or Dropbox for sync and share. So, oh no, we're locked down tight as a drum. They ran Cloud App Security Broker, our CASB, and discovered these apps out here. And they discovered, hundreds of apps that their users were using. So lockdown tight as a drum can mean 3 or 4 apps, or it can mean hundreds of apps. And what was really funny, and I don't know anything about this app, but we saw that there was this sync and share app called Cubby, and nobody had ever heard of it, but it is cloud storage. And I'm sure the people at Cubby have heard of it, so I shouldn't say nobody has ever heard of it. I certainly had never heard of it. But then you can see, the number of users who were using this, certainly more than one user, 5, 6 users who were using this application, and then how much content was being stored out there. And then the other thing that you could see from this is that from these discovered apps, when I was looking at Cubby, and I went over it a little bit too fast, but you can see a security score, a secure score. How secure is Cubby? Well, they do a great job around security. They don't have IP. They don't have multi-factor auth. It doesn't support SAML, but you can see that they're pretty low in the compliance score area. So this gives them an overall score of 7. So a beautiful, beautiful thing that you can see what applications your users are using, and then B, how secure they are or how unsecure are they. And then C, we can go through here and look at these activity logs and what files are moving. Did somebody move HIPAA information or PII or secretive county, city, or state information to some third-party storage? And then above and beyond all that, we can create policies now that say, hey, I'm just going to block Cubby in the future. And we can leverage any of these templates that we have out here that say, are there files being shared with unauthorized domains? Is there a mass download? And this will tie back into my insider risk. Is there a new popular cloud app that's being used? And you will see the severity of risk associated with these from low to high. Mass deletion of teams. Well, that to you might be a high, might be some person who's preparing to leave and they're doing some damage to teams by deleting files or team sites out there. Again, this is easy to integrate into Office 365 with a simple connector I didn't really show that here, but you can connect Office 365 to Cloud App Security, and then you can go one step further and say, hey, maybe I'm going to allow the use of Cubby, but all of the files that go to Cubby need to be protected. So I can, again, leverage my Azure information protection and say I'm going to scan any of these new files and classify and protect those files as they move. So I can scan files that were already protected. And maybe, again, I'm using an FTP site. That is an authorized site, and we do have these known good actors who are coming to those sites. So I'm going to remove the encryption and put the files out there. Or again, I'm going to scan these files. If it hits any of our sensitivity labels, I'm going to protect those files and encrypt those files. And then lastly here, we do have in our compliance center the fact that we can look at content and classify content, see if there's been, what content has labels applied to it. In week 1, we covered Compliance Manager and how Compliance Manager has controls to protect your data. And today we're spending time on actually looking at and protecting with information protection policies. And in the new compliance.microsoft.com, you just create your labels, you publish your labels, or if you have, again, advanced data governance, you automatically apply labels. All of these labels can be manually applied. They can be semi-automatically applied. Like this folder is going to have a label applied to it, but the fully automatic does require some additional licensing for the data protection. I do want to point that out here. So again, create a label, publish that label, make them available. There's always these nice little handy learn mores here. But in creating a label, you're going to give it a friendly name, hopefully new label for PII. And I won't need the new, it will show up as new, but as label for PII. And then I can display that and add a little more description for my end users here if I so desire. And then why did we implement this? It might have been due to regulation, 152.37 or legislation, 122, some bill that was out there. And then what do we want to protect? Files and emails? Are there groups and sites? Like if we want to apply this to a team site or a modern team site, we can do that. And then what do we want to do? We want to encrypt those files with PII. Maybe we want to mark that content and say that we're going to protect that file. Again, I've got the remove encryption if I want to decrypt content. I was working with this sheriff's department, and the sheriff's department uses a third party for all their case management and case litigation. They have to decrypt those files before they securely transmit those files over to that third party. Here now I can say, hey, allow the end user to assign the label and permissioning, or I'm going to do it right now. So again, I can say things like, hey, in Outlook, do not forward, encrypt only. So I do have these capabilities, or again, just like my Azure Information Protection label, I can say, hey, this is going to expire on a specific day, or I think I did 5 days on that other one. We'll do 5 days here, allow only for 1 day here, and then I get to assign my permissions. And I can say this is for any user in my organization, only these authenticated users, just this group, or a specific email address. And that specific email address, again, can be somebody inside or outside the organization if they're a guest user. So here I can apply that policy, and that might honk at me saying, there we go. And then I can choose the permissions. So what do I want? I don't want them to come in as a co-owner or co-author, because again, a co-owner can remove encryption from a file. A co-author can as well. Maybe I just want them to be a viewer of this content. I just want them to view, or if I even want to get more granular than that, I don't want them to run macros. I just want them at a minimum, the least access I can give is view only to that content. So now I've created this. If you're worried about, blind subpoenas or somebody accessing this content, you can use double key. It does require the P2 licensing. I will point that out here, but you can use the second key. This is much better than the other means of hold your own key or bring your own key. With double key, there's again nothing more, no additional servers or services to manage, but we do have the ability to assign double key on here. And then the content marking, I could say, this has PII information in it. I can make that 30 point, and I could make that, blue text or red text and put it diagonally across the page. I could add a header or a footer as well. And then if I want to auto label, I can auto label based upon a condition that this content is in the email or the file. I can do it by context. It looks like there's a fingerprint capability there. And then next, I can assign groups, but I already said I'm going to do this for everybody in the organization. And then if I am applying this to SQL Synapse, I can apply column labels out there, and then I'm going to create this label. Once I'm done creating that label, and that happens pretty darn instantly, we should see that label apply or come out here, label PII. Then we're going to create our label policy and publish this label so the label can be manually applied to or used. And what did I call that label? PII. That was pretty goofy of me, but it has been a long week and it is Friday. I'm going to find it faster than it did. So I'm going to add that label. So it does say label PII. And then who am I going to publish to? I'm going to publish to all. Or again, if this was like a healthcare and I only wanted to go to the DOH or Fish and Wildlife, F&W, DOR to DOR, I can publish it, or I can publish it to individual people. I can publish this to, teams or groups of people, etc., or I can publish it to the entire organization. And then again, I can say, hey, users, just like I did with that E905, users must provide a justification. This was a part number, not HIPAA information. Require users to apply a label. So in that case, they have to apply a label to the email or document. Or the other thing I could do is signify and tell people where they can get more information about what is personally identifiable information. And you might have, like one state I work with, they've got 7 categories of data. Another state that I work with, they have 5 categories of data. You could just have category 1, public information, category 2, inside the state, city, or county information, category 3 inside this division or department that has PII, credit card, whatever. But you can create your categories and just use those categories here. And I'm not going to put a link because I don't have a help page here. And then my thing is always my little tip from your Uncle Tom. I'm creating this. I already created the label called PII. Now I'm going to create a label PII policy. So I know that this is a policy. You don't have to use all caps. I was just being an idiot there and used all caps. I could further describe that and then submit this. And then once it is submitted, when I go back and look at Azure Information Protection, that label would be synchronized to my Azure Information Protection policies inside of, I don't know what I'm saying to make my watch go off, but I apologize for that. But now that label is available for people to apply on content, whether it be in OneDrive, SharePoint, or in email, as I showed you earlier. So that's information protection and protecting our data, protecting our information. You will see under the data classification, we have this new trainable classifier in E5. You will see all of your different sensitive information types out here. We do have a new capability in E5 for the exact data match schemas and types. And then I do love the new Content Explorer. And you can explore content based upon what policy or what DLP policy, and I'll go into DLP policies next here, but what data loss, data leak prevention policy this item is a member as, and I can say, oh, here's some SharePoint credit card information in SharePoint, or my God, look at all this stuff that's sitting out in end users' OneDrives. And then I can come in and look at these OneDrive credit card information that's sitting in users' OneDrive files, and then I can even get to the very specific files and see that, oh, well, this makes sense. They're in purchasing documents. So it might be our state, city, or county credit card information that's sitting in somebody who's authorized to have that information. So, and again, you will see, who's, I'm going to throw that watch across the room, what this information is. I can actually preview this information and see details. I apologize for the weird, I don't know why I'm not able to zoom out today as well, but I can preview and look at this workbook or this sheet and get the details of this, all the metadata of where the file is, what it was named, who created it, when it was created, etc. And so this is a very useful tool. And then if there's any activity, what content has been labeled or relabeled, you're going to see, what content had labels applied. Oh, goodness, some content had labels changed. So we could double click and drill into that content or where the content has changed, and you'll see these by date, and you will see the content that has been modified. So this is super good. I'm going to go one step further here. And what I love about this, and I have to zoom in because I can't see anything with my old eyes, and I forgot to bring my glasses as well. If you're looking at, gosh, there could have been some potential nefarious activity out there where somebody may have turned on, and in this darn tenant, I've had all kinds of problems with the tenant. I don't have auditing turned on. So I'll show you in the old world, if you're familiar with auditing in protection.office.com, and this will be the same. You will see the yellow banner at the top that, hey, this is now existing inside of the audit center inside of compliance.microsoft.com. But I can say labels, and I could do sensitivity here, right? So who changed a retention label? Who changed a sensitivity label? So I think if I just do sense, it will find my sensitivity label. Who modified a rule package, updated a sensitive, removed, that might be more nefarious. Now these audit controls, this is, hey, this cow's already left the barn, right? Somebody already removed that sensitivity label. And yes, you could have a stern talking to with that individual, but do know that, and this is coming soon to the Compliance Center, that I can still do that sensitivity label. Here, who has changed a removed sensitivity label from a file. Now I can create a new alert policy that alerts me in real time when somebody's removing a policy. Removed sensitive label. So I can put that in here. I don't really need to describe that. It will automatically fill this. So it does say, hey, when somebody removes a sensitivity label, I think I must have clicked on two things here. But and then I can say, if it's these individual people, maybe I want to keep a watchful eye on Adelaide. She's sneaky, that Adelaide Vance and Alex Wilbur. So I can say when Adelaide and Alex do these activities, I want to be notified about that. And then me acting as Megan Bowen, I'm going to send this alert to Megan Bowen. Maybe Megan Bowen is out of the office. I want to send it to HR or I want to send it to somebody else. When I was doing the e-discovery, I showed that, e-discovery cases could be created by Megan or Alex Wilbur. And then I had send alerts to Megan and Alex. So if Alex creates a new case, Megan would know. If Megan creates a new case, Alex would know. So you can have these nice little intertwined policies here. And this is going to alert me now anytime somebody changes a policy on a DLP, data loss prevention policy. I did mention that I'd show you the DLP policies. And the really cool thing about DLP policies in your, again, information protection, we can create these policies and auto apply that to content. What I like about the DLP policies is that you have an ability when you create a policy to either use the built-in policies or create a custom policy, and then that and what were we calling it? We called it the label PII, and this is going to be a DLP policy. Just adding this little bit of information to the name. If you do have an error, you know where that errored. It errored in the DLP process, not in the labeling process. And then you can decide, hey, I'm going to protect content across our entire suite, or I'm just going to protect content in teams, as I showed you how that was working from an end user perspective. We're going to do this everywhere. And again, I can select a classification type. I can say when people are sharing outside my organization or inside my organization, or I can go ahead and use these advanced settings and create a new rule. Now, this gets a little bit sneaky here because now I've got my label PII, and then I've got my policy rule. So now I know that, hey, this is the rule, and I can designate the conditions here. So I can use any of these, hundreds of conditions. I'm not going to scroll through the whole list to apply this policy. When somebody types an ICD-9 code in a Teams IM, sends it in a spreadsheet, in an email file, I can add my conditions. And then if I have actions, what do I want to do? I want to restrict or encrypt the content. I want to add or remove a header. I can do those things. And then again, the user notification, we can turn on the user notification here and notify the user. I don't know why that's not allowing me to unfurl that, but I can notify the end user, and then I can signify if this is low, medium, or high. And yeah, if I do want to allow people to, and I guess I didn't do a condition, content contains, we don't want to do that. Just anyway, you get the idea that I can notify people, and then I can allow them to override, and then I can create an incident report here, and then stop processing these DLP policies. Very nice capability that you have for DLP policies with inside your environment. I'm sure I clicked yes. And then you review the settings, and you're off to the races, and your policies are working. Now, I did want to go a couple of steps further here with risk. Another thing that is risky in the work environment. And again, some of my customers, like I was just on a call, and that customer said, well, I'm not seeing any of those things. The only thing I'm seeing at the top of the page is compliance manager. You can configure, like if you are concerned about data classification and alerts and e-discovery and information governance and protection, you can say those are the things that I'm concerned about. And it will show that way every time you come in here. I mentioned there's communication compliance, and within communication compliance, we can use these templates and create policies. And there are some recommended policies here. So if I was going to add, offensive language, I could go out and say, I want to create a policy for offensive language. And this will also not only get offensive language, but it'll get harassment, profanity, and adult images or racy images or gory images. Now, this creates some problems. I was working with detectives, and they have to send gory images. I was working with, very sadly, Child Protective Services, and they had to send what I would classify as gory and racy images. Sad situation. But you can determine, what you're going to allow or not allow, and then what groups of people you're going to supervise, and again, who is going to review this content. And then where this is going to happen. And you can, again, customize this policy. It started out as a template, but again, I can select users or say, no, I'm going to, roll this out across all users, and I'm going to roll this out across, all my locations, and then I can signify my conditions and percentage. And then what's really nice here is that with this policy, you will see alerts when these incidents are happening, and you will be able to generate reports on, again, the information that is being sent around. So that's communication compliance, making sure that communication in Teams, email, Yammer, SharePoint discussions is being adhered to. And again, that you can look at detailed reports of these individual items. Communication compliance, great way to reduce risk. And then last but not least is insider risk management. And with insider risk management, again, you do have alerts cases, and what's most important is these policies that you can create to say, I want to be notified if somebody is thieving data, or if there's a general data leak or loss of, again, any of the sensitive information going outside of my organization. So here again, you're going to be able to create a policy. You can leverage any of these security policies or data leak policies. And if this is a data theft, I can can name that policy. I didn't know I already had one here, and then include either specific or all users and groups across this, and then where, again, what locations we want to prioritize. And then I can add individual SharePoints here if SharePoint sites, if I decide. I can add additional sensitive information types like my one that I just created, that label PII. I don't know if it will show up in here already. But yeah, it didn't. But again, you can pick from your very customized labels and have them. Oh, that was my information type. I named it something else. So my information type are my information labels. I can add that label here, and I created one earlier today called Mark 8. I could add that here. So if somebody is thieving data, they're stealing data from the Mark 8 project, maybe it's a highly confidential project, I can kick that off. And then choosing my triggering events, I can select all of these events, or I can look at, adding people outside, removing sensitive information. So you've got a number of events that you can pick from, and again, this leveraging the integration with our cloud app security broker. So if I've got an unusual download, an unusual upload, any of these other failures out here, there's just a great amount of content here, and you can always learn more by clicking on these learn more buttons that will help you get started with insider risk and management. To that end, I want to cover, before I go back and cover one more quick item here. We do have these things called solution accelerators and workshops. So there are workshops and solution accelerators. Now that zoom in didn't work, on data loss prevention and protecting content. So you can absolutely leverage these solution accelerators. It tells you how to get started with this solution accelerator, how to get started with information protection, has all these great details, best practices that we've garnered over years and years of working with government customers. Just a huge, nice document. One thing I always say, you might want to reduce the margin of this, and then you'll have a bigger margin for putting your own reasons for why we did X, Y, Z, or A, B, C in that margin. And then we do have our security and compliance center workshop pluses. These workshop pluses, in the event, in the case of this, it's a 3-day, day 1, 2, and 3, and I think this is at a 300 level. You could come back and say, well, we really want a 100, 200 level, and we want all 3 days to focus on information governance, records management, and data loss prevention. So you can jettison these other 4 modules and just pick those 2. So you can customize and tailor this. And then we do have great training partners like Brainstorm, who has the quick starts, video learning, some wonderful, great content as far as getting you ramped on advanced e-discovery, compliance center, et cetera. The last thing that I wanted to cover here, we showed you the compliance manager in the very beginning. I'm drawing a blank now. Oh, the last thing I wanted to cover was these connectors, being able to protect and govern your data no matter where it exists. And I did cover the fact that, there are some different license agreements, license suites. Azure Information Protection, that's included with Office 365, P1 with EMS, and P2. And P2 is basically the automation SKU. So when you're using anything automatic, that's for sensitivity. Automatic applies or implies that you're using the P2 suite. And then I did mention that hold your own key, bring your own key, and double key encryption requires that plan 2. So with that, I wanted to go into and show you the data connectors, and I have to be in the right tenant for this. These have not yet rolled out to the GCC. So if you come to the Government Community Cloud, click on data connectors and see that your cabinet is bare, that there aren't any connectors in there. Just know that they will be appearing soon. As with many things in the Government Community Cloud, we have to wait for our governance and audits and certifications to occur before these are released in the Government Community Cloud. But they've been available in the commercial cloud for some time. They just have to get through that whole auditing and certification process to make sure that these are all CGIS, NIST, IRS 1075 for FTI data. But one good example of this is because, again, remember that we can protect data, we can discover data, we can produce data. I had a customer before a big Zoom bomb incident. They were using Zoom for their meetings, but they had no way to discover or produce that for FOIA public records, or if there was a matter, they did all their performance reviews, and sadly, their performance reviews, they had a issue with all of their private meetings were published out to YouTube. It's a bad situation here. But again, communication compliance, if somebody's, again, using foul language or sending gory or pornographic images in a Zoom meeting, we'll catch that. If they're sending content like HIPAA codes or PII or sensitive information, we will catch that. We'll protect that with encryption. So the beautiful thing is that these data connectors on the last wheel of my image here will protect you from data no matter where it travels. So inside of Office 365 with Office apps, on premises with non-Office apps, databases, etc., 23,000 cloud applications in the world, or via connectors anywhere in the world. So I hope you found this useful. Just know that we take, governance of your data very seriously and have produced a lot of great tools to help you govern your data more efficiently, effectively. I know I haven't used these slides. You can review and look at these slides. I did show my little wheel here with connectors, AIP, MCAS. I didn't mention, really didn't spend a great amount of time on the endpoint protection. I still believe the best way to endpoint protect your files is by leveraging the great capabilities that we have to move your backups off network and move them to OneDrive. And you, through a single login script, can have the synchronization client downloaded to your end users' devices and all of their known folders backed up to OneDrive, where again, they're going to be safe, secure, data is going to be encrypted, retention policies will be applied, the content will be searchable and discoverable. So, MDE is great, wonderful, cool tool. It is cool to a cool tool as well. But you can today back up your desktops to OneDrive, where again, RMS or AIP labels and retention labels and e-discovery can be done from one single point and one single interface. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. I want to thank you very much for your time and attention. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Remember the solution accelerators for quick and easy deployment and onboarding, and the wonderful workshop pluses for training, and our great partners in Brainstorm. Thank you again for your time today. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.